the Eco-Warriors and the Scarlet Pimpernel 2.0. Picture the following locations and activities. An oil rig in the North Sea with a small submarine approaching. A Home Secretary in the confinement of his Westminster offices, huddled with his aides, preparing an announcement to Parliament. A smart middle-aged woman hacking media systems on a state-of-the-art computer. A march of 1,000 climate activists who call themselves Gaia's guerrillas, approaching a road bridge spanning the Thames. Any one of them could have marked the beginning of this short snip out of British history, and each of the four possible starting points would have cast a slightly different emotive light on the weekend's events. But this version begins with the minister. His name is Robin Wharton. He has been in office for 4 years. He has proposed to the Cabinet that a new tariff should be added to the statute books, punishing anyone defacing public buildings with imprisonment of up to 8 years. This, despite the crime not being remotely commensurate with other crimes such as manslaughter, rape, robbery or fraud. But the Home Secretary is under pressure to apprehend and incarcerate the mastermind behind the graffiti-stenciled words Gaia's guerrillas on 200 major tourist attractions across Britain in a recent coordinated reaction to governmental policies on fossil fuels. Famous landmarks defaced included buildings of national pride, such as Westminster Abbey, the Houses of Parliament, and every one of the royal palaces. The stencil displayed a small red flower instead of an apostrophe. The mastermind behind the movement had adopted the emblem of the hero of Baroness Orczy's 19th century novels, under the title The Scarlet Pimpernel, who, you may recall, left behind a picture of this same flower to commemorate his daring rescues of aristocrats bound for the guillotine. While the movement obviously had no time for 21st century British aristocrats, lumping them together with oligarchs and multinational CEOs as planet assassins, their marching supporters chanted a pastiche of the rhyme in Orczy's novels, celebrating her hero. In the books, it ran like this: They seek him here, they seek him there, those Frenchies seek him everywhere. Is he in heaven or is he in hell, that damned elusive Pimpernel? The Climate Warriors' updated version went: They seek him here, they seek him there, the polluters seek him everywhere. Who he is they cannot tell, that damned elusive Pimpernel. Now, the reaction to the Home Secretary's proposal when he launched it during a parliamentary debate was predictable. The official opposition, that is, those on the left of the political spectrum, grimly labelled it excessive, autocratic, and an abuse of power, while those to the right slavered their approval and waved their order papers. The Shadow Home Secretary rebuked Wharton, saying that while the British people as one decried these sacrilegious acts against the country's noble heritage, such a draconian law would have the effect of turning the Gaians into heroes, and in particular their leader, the Scarlet Pimpernel. Robin Wharton snarled his disagreement. The country needed fossil fuels in its transition to sustainable energy sources, and he would make sure their extraction would be protected at all costs. These people were the lowest of the low, the dross, and their mastermind was the foulest of them all, and he intended to put him behind bars. Whilst this exchange was taking place over the dispatch box, the sophisticated submersible had already unloaded its delayed action explosives on top of the power cable, hooking a giant oil rig to the shore. At the same moment it had released a shoal of tiny lifebuoys stenciled with the Gaian message. Meanwhile, the hacker had finished the coding of her latest piece of agitprop. At the time of the parliamentary debate, screens on streaming TV and social media were suddenly engulfed in a shower of Scarlet Pimpernels. They kept falling until systems were made flower-proof. The 1,000-strong band of activists, dressed in mock 18th century clothing, V for Vendetta masks, and sporting red pimpernels on their lapels, marched with their banners and placards towards a traffic-free Hammersmith Bridge over the Thames, a bridge that would soon be reopened after repairs to vehicles. When they reached it, they began a new chant. Hammersmith Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. Hammersmith Bridge is falling down because fossil fuels are filthy. Then they began marching across it in perfect step. Once they'd traversed it in this unified assault, they broke up and dissipated like water in sand. As they had passed over, they had stuck little pimpernels on its handrails, making the whole bridge glow red in the sun's rays. Now, the four events just described vied for breaking news headlines in the febrile media over the following days. The disabled oil rig, the red flowers filling media screens, and the realization that Hammersmith Bridge, closed to traffic for years, was now unlikely to open again owing to the Gaians' in-step marching, having created new cracks in the brittle Victorian ironwork. Any one of them would have been major news in a normal week. The search for the real-life Scarlet Pimpernel created a frenzy similar to the one for Banksy, the anonymous graffiti artist, but elevated 1,000-fold to a hysterical level. TV documentaries, articles in newspapers, interviews with silhouetted figures professing to know his likely identity filled an insatiable hunger to know who the perpetrator of this campaign against fossil fuel production might be. As the days went by, and the Scarlet Pimpernel remained at large, and his followers stenciled more and more buildings, the public mood slowly shifted. A Sunday soon after was Armistice Sunday, and some veterans opted for pimpernels in the place of poppies to publicise the planet's ills. The Home Secretary was not amused. Meanwhile, it was grudgingly agreed in the bars and around the water coolers and in the media that the leader of the Gaians was really a hero, like the original Pimpernel, and likely to be a well-connected public figure. Fertile minds on conspiracy channels suggested that, as likely as not, he was an A-list celebrity. The most popular guesses involved actors playing Marvel superheroes. His popularity and the mythology about him grew in bounds the more the establishment, led by the Home Secretary, sought to attack and make a pariah of him. The battle between the rabid politician and the dashing activist was depicted as a modern version of Robespierre and his guillotine versus the Pimpernel and his little red flower. There were documentaries and many biographic columns spent on the rapid rise to the political heights of Robin Wharton, the Newcastle MP. They were all of the same ilk, tracing his rise from a council estate, secondary school, a father's suicide, to Westminster, via a scholarship to Oxford. He was described as brilliant and almost Machiavellian in his ascent of the ladder of politics. What no hacker described, because Wharton was so secretive about his early upbringing, was his feral childhood in the countryside. How he freed creatures from traps, went to school with a tame jackdaw, foraged for wild food and pressed rare flowers under glass. Nor that it was he who found his father dead at the end of a hose fitted to the 4x4 exhaust in the luxury car showroom he managed, just a few months before Wharton went up to Oxford. Nor did these writers reprise the mind of that same young man as he moved in the Oxford circles of the sons and daughters of oil millionaires from the OPEC countries, coming to understand through this social contact their culture of fossil fuel hegemony. He never forgot it as he forged his political career. Now, as Home Secretary, he advocated escalating police action on all activists, accusing them of treason and even of using hate speech. But the more he voiced his disapproval, the more their numbers swelled across the country. When he confided in Cabinet that a mole at the top of the government must be leaking information to the guerrillas, the more leaky the government seemed to become. It was as if, in his role as Home Secretary, by attempting to suppress the Gaian activists, he was actually strengthening their hand, giving them the oxygen of publicity, and making them ever more popular. And the more he attacked the shadowy figure of the Scarlet Pimpernel, the more media time was spent on presenting this creature as a romantic, modern anti-hero. To political commentators, it was an enthralling conflict. Who would be the victor? On his own, in the privacy of his rooms at Admiralty House, Robin Wharton stood before a full-length mirror preparing to attend Cabinet. As he gazed at himself in his Savile Row suit, his reflection blurred, and momentarily he was transformed into fashionable early 19th century coat, waistcoat, and breeches. He smiled as his actual reflection returned. Then he turned over his lapel to reveal on its underside a badge, a tiny, bright metal Scarlet Pimpernel. Well, there we have the Eco Warriors and the Scarlet Pimpernel 2.0. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope over the next festive period you find time to listen to many more tales on this channel. In the meantime, you might also like to read some of my work. You will find it on www.jacksanger.com. There you can download for free novels, plays, short stories, and even some Zen non-fiction. In the meanwhile, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. It just means that you will get some kind of foreknowledge of what stories are to come. And tell your friends and pass on links. It would be very helpful. In the meantime, have a wonderful festive period and go in peace. Bye-bye.